Hey friends, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Duns. I'm actually up super early on this Monday morning because we had a really long weekend full of ministry up until the last minute last night. Fun fact, weekends in ministry life are some of the busiest times. I actually love a Monday. Sundays are not our Sabbath for our family. And so a lot of us try to pick a different day that is a day of rest for ourselves, and Monday happens to be mine. And so sometimes on Mondays, I wake up really excited to get everyone off to school and to work, and to get to have time to myself, time just me and God. And so today I'm up early, and I did a reading on my own. And chapter 5 today is so good. It's so good that we're gonna have to talk about it later with the boys. They can't miss the goodness from it, but it's full of takeaways. So it's about this man named Naaman, and he is the commander of the army for the king of Syria, and he's well thought of, and he's been victorious and successful. But one problem he has is that he has leprosy. And so really back in the day, that is something that keeps you from your family. It keeps you away from others. It's very isolating. And so I'm curious as to how he did his job back in the day. Of course, he's part of Syria, so they don't have the same laws that Israel has as far as cleanness and uncleanness. But we pick up here in his life where Naaman's wife has an Israelite servant, and the servant's like, hey, you should ask like the one true God to help you with this leprosy stuff. And I mean, I'm sure he's like, well, why wouldn't I? And so the king of Syria goes to the king of Israel and asks the king of Israel to help with his commander, Naaman, to help, and maybe his God can cure him of leprosy. Well, immediately the king of Israel is like, oh no, why did he put this on me? Why did he put this task on me? Surely he's starting a war by doing this this impossible thing, putting this task in my lap, giving me this responsibility. And here comes Elisha, and he's like, hey, remember that God who can do anything? Why don't we ask him? And so the king of Israel is like, oh yeah. And so they send Naaman to Elisha, and actually Elisha doesn't even come out and see him face to face. Instead, he sends word and he tells Naaman to go wash in the Jordan 7 times. And Naaman is just like, hold on, he didn't even come out to talk to me. He gives me this crazy task to do. That's ridiculous. There's so many other bodies of water that would be better to go bathe in. And just a side note, I have actually been baptized in the Jordan, and we've been to Israel a few times. The Jordan is like a dirty river. It doesn't look nice. It doesn't look special, but it's pretty special. I mean, we've just seen Elisha and Elijah part it and walk across on dry ground. And also the Israelites, that was the second body of water that they parted and walked over. And so the Jordan at this point has been parted 3 times. And another fun, happy fact is later in the New Testament, when God sends his son Jesus to earth, that is where he will be baptized, which is why I wanted to be baptized there. So this is actually a really important body of water, but Naaman is sitting there like, this is not at all what I imagined. This is not at all how I thought I would be healed. Elisha could come out and like face me and just speak the words and I could be healed, but he's given me this crazy task. And thank the Lord for wise, godly counsel, because Naaman's servants are around him and they're like, hold on, you're not even gonna try? You're not gonna go wash in the Jordan like this guy said? And so Naaman's like, I guess I will. And so he goes and washes in the Jordan 7 times, and ta-da, his leprosy is gone. He is miraculously healed by God. The Bible tells us in verse 14, his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child. He was clean. There was a time in my life where I realized, as I was reading through scripture and I would see these miracles that God performed, that I realized when God would heal people, it wasn't like a healing like, oh, let me put your skin back together, or let me, put your arm back on, or whatever. Let me put your ear back on. Instead, there was a full restoration of their health to the point where the thing that God healed on them was restored back to better than it was before. And so in this little section of scripture, there are so many really good takeaways. One takeaway I ask is, do we forget that we have access to God? As I look at the king of Israel, and he's in despair because he feels like he's put on the spot. This must be a trap. The king of Syria is asking me to heal his army commander. How am I going to do that? Well, you've seen your God do many, many miraculous things. Do we forget that we have access to this God who is sovereign and powerful over all the things? I think sometimes we do. We live in this world that is full of limitations. And so that was one of my takeaways. Another takeaway is, in relationship with God, he can do these amazing and miraculous things, but it does require action on our part sometimes. It does require faith and trust in him. I watched Naaman here, and his healing wasn't going to happen in the way that he imagined. And so he almost misses out on God's miraculous power because it's not looking like the way he thinks. And so it requires our faith and trust in God. And as I walk this road with God longer, I realize that rarely does God do things in the way that I think he should. Rarely do things work out the way that I envision them. And so a lot of this journey walking with God requires faith and trust in him. And he proves himself over and over and over. Hopefully, as we walk with him, we get used to that and we trust him more quickly. We have faith in him more quickly so that we're just diving into that Jordan immediately. And then another takeaway from this little section is that, thank goodness, Naaman is surrounded by wise people. And it just makes me look at the people that I surround myself with. Are they pointing me to God? Are they living lives that are guiding me to jump in the Jordan and obey and trust God no matter what things look like? Or are they going to be yes men in my own life and be like, oh yeah, that is crazy, don't go to the Jordan? And then finally, the last half of this chapter is about Naaman wanting to go to Elisha and wanting to give him a gift and thank him for, being a part of his miraculous healing. And Elisha does not accept the gift. And what I put in the margin of my Bible is he wants God to get the glory. Elisha was just the middleman. He's just the guy pointing Naaman to God, to the healer, to the miracle giver. And so he does not want to accept any kind of gift. But Gehazi, who is a servant of Elijah, sees this and he gets greedy. And so he's like, when Naaman leaves, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to get some of that money, some of that gift he was going to give to Naaman. He has it. He doesn't need it. He was going to give it away. So I'll take it. And so Gehazi goes and he's pretty deceptive. He creates this story of a needy person who needs it when really he's going to steal the money. And so Naaman, who's in a generous mood, is like, here, yes, give it to this person. But Gehazi lies and says that Elisha needs it to give to this person. And so I just look here and I'm like, Elisha is a servant of God. He's a prophet of God. And that's kind of defaming who Elisha is and defaming Elisha's God, because God just healed Naaman. He can provide whatever this poor person needs. And so Gehazi is in bad territory. He's being greedy, but also he's taken the Lord's name in vain in this situation. And so Gehazi comes back to Naaman, and he's a little bit richer because he stole and tricked someone. And Elisha, he's a man of God. He knows exactly what happened. He's like, Gehazi, where were you? And Gehazi lies, and he says, I was here the whole time. Nothing happened. And Elisha's like, okay, well, because you lied and because you were deceptive, you're the leprosy that was Naaman's is now on you. And so now Gehazi has leprosy. And so just some interesting stories and looks into God's power, God's plan, how we are to look to him and to trust him, and how we are to stay far, far away from sin. Chapter 5 was super good, don't y'all think? Join us tomorrow for chapter 6. Y'all have a great Monday. Bye.